But, you know, I really am just like you guys. You know, everybody's trying to touch me and grab my clothes and get me to kiss their baby or whatever it is. And you guys need to understand, it was just a short period of time ago that I sat in a meeting very similar to what you guys are sitting in. No translation? Don't worry, it'll come back. Which is Spanish? Spanish, no problemo. It'll come back, don't worry. But, you know, it was just about, I guess, 17 years ago. I was 19. This was just shortly after my mom had passed away. And I really did not know what I was going to do for a living. I'd only had a 9th grade education in school. And for those of you who don't know the background that well, I worked in a drug rehabilitation center for about 3 years. And when I first went to go work there, I was 16, and I made $50 a month. And for that $50, they gave me room and board, gave me a place to sleep. And many of you met Michael Rosen, who developed our promotional catalog. He was my boss when I was 16 years old. And so he's known me since I was a little kid. And we used to raise money for this place so that other kids would have a chance to go to this facility and get off drugs and learn a new way of life and so on. And so what I did for 3 years was basically walk on the street and go into offices and ask people if they would be interested in helping children who had problems to make a new way of life for themselves. So basically all my life I've been in situations where I've predominantly been trying to help other kids basically like myself, that, you know, that didn't want to have to live the way I was brought up, that didn't want to have to live in the kind of neighborhood that I grew up in. I didn't have a great family life. My mom, I didn't even meet my real father till I was 21 years of age. And I was really into trying to see if not only I could change my life, but if I could help raise enough money for other kids to go to a place to correct themselves. So that's how I started that was my very first job. And by the way, he'll never tell you this, but Chris Pear, who runs our international department and has opened up all the countries, he and I used to work together when I was 16 also. We worked on the street together. I knew Chris Pear when he had hair down to the bottom of his back, right? Now, some of you know Mike Martin. He was on the fundraising situation with me too. And, you know, we were just young kids trying to make it a better world for people to live in. We weren't making any money at the thing. And then after I left there when I was about 19, I got my very first what I would call a real job. And remember here, I didn't have any schooling background or anything, so there wasn't an opportunity for me really with my background or the people who were guiding me most of my life to ever really tell me as an individual that you could really go out and become somebody great in life. That had never, those circumstances had never happened to me. And I got a job at this clothing store. Actually, it was very interesting. It was only 2 blocks from where I ended up starting Herbalife International. And it was a place called Executive Tailored Clothes. And I was working there as a 19-year-old kid. This was just right after my mom had passed away. And I was working there selling clothes for about $1,200 a month. I worked as hard as I possibly knew how to work. And I got to tell you something, I had a great attitude back then. I had the same kind of personality I do today. You talk to the older guys that knew me when I was a 16-year-old kid. I was a nice kid. You know, I had a nice personality. I wanted good things for myself and everybody else. But as hard as I was working, I couldn't make it better for me in those circumstances. And one of the reasons I'm telling you this is last night I got a telephone call when I came in at 2 o'clock. There was a note there for me. And one of the guys that I worked with in this clothing store gave me a phone call yesterday while we were in the meetings and so on. And I first talked to him about the Herbalife opportunity when we opened up our company. And think about this guy. Here was a guy who knew me when I was selling clothes and then knew me when we started the Herbalife opportunity. Just shortly after I was in the clothing business there, I had gotten invited to my very first meeting like this. It was not Herbalife. It was a company called Slender Now Products. And when I'd heard about a weight loss product and multi-level marketing, I'd never heard anything like this in my life. And as a matter of fact, the sponsor in that company, a guy by the name of Bud Bell, his assistant was here this weekend watching everything that went on this weekend. And she just couldn't believe what happened. And the first time in my life, someone told me you could become more. But the most important thing for me was I saw a product that I could help people lose weight with and that sort of thing so that they didn't have to suffer the way that my mom did. That company only lasted a very short period of time. It went bankrupt. I got involved in another company that had to do with weight loss. That company shortly went bankrupt. And I said, hey, and this was only when I was about 22 at that particular point. I said, what I'm going to do for the rest of my entire life is help people lose weight. I'd been with a couple of people who had gone down and out of business. And I said, listen, this is all I want to do is help people. And I'd been doing that even when I was a young kid at 16, raising money for people. But my main thrust in life was wanting to help people lose weight. And so you know the story from there. I got a hold of Dick Marconi. The reason I had known Dick Marconi is he was a manufacturer for one of those companies at one time. And I asked Dick, listen, you know, this is what I want to do. Help me put together the product. And he put together the line of the Herbalife products for me, and I got the company started. But going back to why I told you this, the very first meeting I ever had in Herbalife, you guys have all heard about when I came in with a baggie full of powder, and I said, you guys aren't going to believe it. We're going to take this product around the world. One of the guys who sat in that very first meeting was a friend of mine who was back in this clothing store, and he told me, because he had seen me fail in the clothing business, he had seen the first company in weight loss I was in go bankrupt. He saw me in the second company I was in go bankrupt. Both of those companies, I'd gotten him involved in the business. And so consequently, when I started Herbalife, he said, no way in the world is this ever going to work. Hughes is going to be a failure. But I did get him on the product. And he lost 40 pounds in the next 8 months, and he kept bringing me referrals and kept bringing me referrals. And finally, he got himself in the business and got himself up to about $10,000 a month. At that point, he quit the company. This is about, I'd say maybe 12 years ago or something like this. Now, his downline is Dennis Dowdell, who makes about $300,000 a year. First line underneath that is Suzanne and Cody Morrow, who made about $400,000 last year, and Henry and Stanya Smeck, who made over $1 million last year. Now, this guy calls me last night. Now, I haven't been able to talk to him yet. I called him back this morning, and he didn't answer the phone. What is the difference between a guy like him, who knows the story, saw it when it first got started, became successful, dropped out of the company, saw his downline become successful, heard about what's happened here in Orlando? He knew that we were coming, but he certainly didn't know we were going to take over the entire city, okay? And he's hearing about all this stuff. He's obviously getting phone called by every single person in his life telling him, you got to be out of your mind not doing the Herbalife business. What is the difference between him and the person that makes $1 million in Herbalife per year? Answer, and I want you to write this in your notes. Not much. That's the answer. The fact is Eric Nimmer's got all the talent in the world to become a millionaire in Herbalife. The reality is Eric has got everything in his life that's got the capability of going wherever he wants to go in life. And yet, he's still miserable with his circumstances. He's still miserable at the job he's working at. And he's still at the most opportune time in the company's history. If there was ever a time to get started, it'd be now. Forget about back 15 years ago. I mean, if you were ever getting going in this company, it would be now. And what's the difference between the person who makes it in Herbalife and the person who absolutely stays broke and in their same miserable circumstances that they can't stand, that they complain to their wives about, that they yak and slap their kids around because they hate their jobs and can't stand their miserable set of circumstances and don't even provide enough leadership for their children to get their children to be able to see a new way of life? What's the difference between that person and the person that doesn't make it? The answer is not much. And so what I'm trying to tell you here today is you guys got a couple of decisions when you leave this weekend. The only difference is acting on some of the information that you've heard. All it takes is to go forward. And those are daily decisions that you make. Getting the guts to put on that button every single morning and going out in there and talking to people. Going out there and putting out that flyer one more time. Hey, listen, can you guys make it if these other guys have made it, the people that you've been seeing the last couple of days? Seriously. But you know what the sad thing is? We'll probably be here in 95. And by the way, I've been saying 10 months and 9 months and 17 days. It's 10 months, 17 days. A slight little error there. That's Christmas, okay? You know, what's the difference between now and the next Christmas if this guy doesn't do anything different? His circumstances are going to be exactly the same in life unless he changes them. So, if you guys want things to change for you, you got to do something different. You got to be able to just put out those flyers each and every day. And it's just a little bit at a time that you got to do every single day. Hey, look, I didn't get to where we are here today other than facing the challenges that there are every single day and just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. There's not a meeting that you can come to. You learn lots of new ideas at these meetings. You learn lots of new techniques. You learn lots of new things that you can do. But when you boil it down, there's only a few things that all of us do. We use the products consistently. We keep talking to people. We wear some kind of buttons, whether it's our Herbalife button, whether it's one of our diamond pins, whether it's our World Team pin, or whatever, or it's one of the Herbalife sweaters, or whatever it is. We do something that gets us to talk to people, okay? Something, whatever it is that you do. Put out a flyer, whatever. And we talk to people, okay? But if you take those three things there, we promote the business, obviously. You guys have gotten some great stuff from these people here this weekend, and you'll get even more here tomorrow. But out of every single successful person that you've heard, and the ones that you're going to hear from tomorrow, what do they all have in common? Consistency. That's the one thing that they've got. They heard some new information, and they acted upon it. And that's the one thing that the guy that worked for me in the clothing store didn't have. And here's what's dangerous. Even after he got his checkup to Herbalife to 10 grand a month. Now that's insanity. Guy got his checkup to $10,000 a month. You know what happened to this guy? He got formal brain damage. And in my opinion, what's called the ultimate form of brain damage. He said, hey, listen, if I can make $10,000 a month in Herbalife, I bet I could start another business and I could make $20,000 a month. Somehow he got this brilliant idea that if he could make $10,000 a month here and it was working for him, why not start an entirely different business and go ahead and make another $10,000? Here's where he made a mistake. He wasn't a brilliant businessman. He didn't know how to manage money. He didn't know how to do that business. He wasn't counting on the fact he was going to have a lot of lawyers to get him in business, that he was going to have to manage employees, that he was going to have to do all the stuff it normally takes to run a company. And he had forgotten that the fact that one of the reasons he was making $10,000 a month is he didn't have to manage employees, he didn't have to have lawyers, he didn't have to manage his inventory, he didn't have to do all the things it normally takes in business. All he had to keep doing was using the products, wearing a button, and talking to people. And doing that, he was making 10 grand.